The Forgotten Signal. Dr. James Rivera wiped the sleep from his eyes as he stumbled toward the communication console. The soft chiming of the quantum receiver had pulled him from a restless dream about his daughter's birthday party back on Earth. 3 years stationed on Horizon's edge had taught him that middle-of-the-night alerts usually meant equipment malfunctions, not alien contact. The monitoring station hung in the void between star systems, a lonely outpost where humanity watched for threats from the unknown. Most days, James and his small crew of 12 monitored empty space and filed reports that no one on Earth seemed to read. The isolation was crushing, but someone had to stand watch at the edge of human civilization. Captain Maya Thompson was already at her station when James arrived in the communications bay. Her short gray hair was disheveled, and her uniform looked hastily thrown on. Maya had commanded Horizon's Edge for 5 years, and James had never seen her look so confused. "What have we got, Captain?" James asked, settling into his chair and activating his translation programs. Maya pointed at the main display screen. Waves of data scrolled past in patterns that made James's heart race. "Something big, Doctor. The quantum array picked up a transmission about 20 minutes ago. It's not coming from any human ship or colony." Engineer Alex Park joined them, carrying a steaming cup of coffee and looking more awake than anyone had a right to be at 3 in the morning. Alex was young, brilliant, and had designed most of the station's communication systems. If anyone could make sense of strange signals, it was him. "The transmission is incredibly old," Alex said, studying his handheld scanner. "The quantum signature suggests it's been traveling through space for at least 40 years, maybe longer." James felt his pulse quicken. 40 years meant the spirit signal had been sent before humans had even developed faster-than-light travel. Whatever civilization had broadcast this message had been calling for help since before humanity had learned to reach the stars. "Can you clean up the signal?" James asked. Alex's fingers danced across his control panel. The chaotic noise on the screen gradually resolved into more organized patterns. James recognized mathematical progressions, star charts, and what looked like technical specifications. But underlying all the data was something that made his trained linguist's mind light up with excitement. "There's language here," James whispered. "Actual alien language." Captain Thompson leaned forward. "Can you translate it?" James was already running the signal through his analysis programs. His computers compared the alien sounds to every human language, looking for patterns and structures. After 20 minutes of processing, the first words appeared on his screen. "Help us," James read aloud, "by the light of dying stars. Help us." The 3 humans sat in stunned silence. After decades of listening to empty space, they had finally found proof that humanity was not alone in the universe, and that proof was a desperate cry for help. More translations followed. The aliens called themselves the Valeth Empire. Their message painted a picture of a once great civilization that had ruled dozens of star systems. Their cities had been marvels of crystal and light. Their ships had traveled faster than anything humans had ever built, and their culture had flourished for thousands of years. But something had gone wrong, terribly wrong. "The Void Swarm," James translated, his voice growing tense. "They call their enemy the Void Swarm, ancient machines that travel from system to system, consuming everything in their path." New images began appearing on their screens as Alex cleaned up more of the signal. The pictures showed magnificent Valeth cities reduced to rubble, elegant spaceships torn apart and drifting dead in space. Entire planets stripped bare and left as lifeless rocks. "How long has this been going on?" Maya asked. James consulted the timestamps embedded in the message. According to this, the attacks began over 50 years ago. The Valeth have been fighting for their lives for half a century. The message continued to unfold, revealing the full scope of the disaster. The Void Swarm didn't just destroy civilizations, they absorbed them. Every piece of technology, every scrap of knowledge, every cultural achievement was incorporated into the swarm's collective intelligence. With each civilization they consumed, the machines became stronger and smarter. Alex was analyzing the technical data. The Velith were incredibly advanced. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. Their ships could travel at speeds we can only dream of, and their weapons could shatter moons. And they're still losing, Maya said grimly. The implications hit James like a physical blow. If beings this advanced couldn't stop the Void Swarm, what chance did humanity have? According to the Velith star charts, the machines followed predictable patterns, systematically working their way across the galaxy. If they continued on their current path, they would reach human space within 30 years. "We need to contact Earth immediately," James said. "This isn't just about helping strangers. This is about the survival of our entire species." Maya was already preparing the emergency transmission protocols. "Alex, package everything we've received. Every piece of data, every translation, every technical specification. Earth Command needs to see all of it." As they worked, more of the Velith message became clear. It wasn't just a distress call. It was a warning. The aliens had broadcast their message to every corner of the galaxy, hoping that someone, somewhere, would hear their plea and learn from their fate. "They're trying to save us," James realized. "Even as their own civilization dies, they're trying to warn other species about what's coming." The thought filled him with a mixture of admiration and sorrow. The Velith were facing extinction, but their final act was one of generosity toward unknown strangers. They were giving away their most precious possession, knowledge, in the hope that it might help others survive. Alex finished encoding the transmission package. "Ready to send to Earth, Captain?" Maya hesitated for a moment. Once they sent this message, everything would change. Humanity would learn that they were not alone in the universe, but they would also learn that they were in terrible danger. The comfortable isolation of human space was about to end forever. "Send it," Maya ordered. The quantum transmitter engaged, hurling the Velith message across space toward Earth. The package would take 8 hours to reach the home system, where it would land on the desks of politicians, military leaders, and scientists who had never imagined they would face such a decision. James looked out the observation window at the stars. Somewhere out there, the last survivors of the Velith Empire were hiding in the ruins of their civilization, believing they were completely alone. They had sent their message into the void 40 years ago, never knowing if anyone would hear their call for help. But they were wrong. Humanity had heard them. The question now was what humanity would do about it. Captain Thompson sat back in her command chair, the weight of the situation settling on her shoulders. "Doctor, in your professional opinion, what are the chances that Earth will decide to help?" Maya hesitated for a moment. Once they sent this message, everything would change. Humanity would learn that they were not alone in the universe, but they would also learn that they were in terrible danger. The comfortable isolation of human space was about to end forever. "Send it," Maya ordered. The quantum transmitter engaged, hurling the Velith message across space toward Earth. The package would take 8 hours to reach the home system, where it would land on the desks of politicians, military leaders, and scientists who had never imagined they would face such a decision. James looked out the observation window at the stars. Somewhere out there, the last survivors of the Velith Empire were hiding in the ruins of their civilization, believing they were completely alone. They had sent their message into the void 40 years ago, never knowing if anyone would hear their call for help. But they were wrong. Humanity had heard them. The question now was what humanity would do about it. Captain Thompson sat back in her command chair, the weight of the situation settling on her shoulders. "Doctor, in your professional opinion, what are the chances that Earth will decide to help?" James considered the question carefully. Helping the Velith would mean sending human ships into unknown space to face an enemy that had destroyed dozens of civilizations. It would be dangerous, expensive, and possibly suicidal, but it would also be the right thing to do. "I think," James said slowly, "that humanity will surprise us all." The transmission raced through space toward Earth, carrying with it the hopes of two civilizations. Behind it, the crew of Horizon's Edge continued monitoring the Valeth signal, translating more messages and learning more about their desperate situation. Each new piece of information painted a clearer picture of the threat facing all intelligent life in the galaxy. But it also revealed something else. The Valeth had not given up. Even after 50 years of devastating losses, they were still fighting, still hoping, still believing that somewhere in the vast universe, someone would hear their call and come to help. They were about to discover that someone had been listening all along. Humanity's bold response. The emergency session of the United Earth Council lasted 18 hours. President Catherine Wells sat at the head of the massive oval table in Geneva, surrounded by the leaders of every human colony and military installation. The holographic displays showed the Valeth star charts, technical specifications, and translated messages that had arrived from Horizon's Edge. Admiral Sarah Mitchell stood at the front of the room, her weathered face grave as she addressed the assembly. She had served in the Earth Fleet for 30 years and had never faced a briefing like this one. "The situation is clear," she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. "We have confirmed the existence of an alien civilization, and that civilization is facing extinction." Dr. Rivera's voice came through the communication link from Horizon's Edge. "Honored representatives, I've been studying the Valeth message for the past day. Their culture was remarkable, peaceful, scientific, artistic. They were explorers and teachers, much like we aspire to be. The Void Swarm has already destroyed 43 Valeth worlds. Our estimates suggest fewer than 10 million survivors remain from a population that once numbered in the billions." The council chamber erupted in whispered conversations. Colony Administrator Chen from Mars Colony raised her hand. "Dr. Rivera, what assurance do we have that this isn't some kind of trap? How do we know the Valeth are really peaceful?" "Because they're dying for it," Dr. Rivera replied simply. "The technical data shows they had the capability to build weapons of mass destruction, but they never did. Even facing extinction, they chose evacuation over retaliation. They could have sent warriors to warn us. Instead, they sent poets and scientists." General Morrison from Luna Base leaned forward. "Even if they're peaceful, what can we do? If their advanced technology couldn't stop this void swarm, how can our ships make a difference?" Admiral Mitchell activated a new display showing humanity's current military capabilities. The Valeth fought conventionally, large fleets, heavy weapons, defensive formations. They tried to match the Void Swarm's strength with strength, but humans have always been different. We're smaller, weaker, but we adapt faster than any species we've encountered. President Wells had been listening quietly to the debate. Finally, she spoke. "Admiral Mitchell, what exactly are you proposing?" "A rescue mission," the Admiral said without hesitation. "We take our fastest ships, our best crews, and we go to Valeth space. Not to fight the Void Swarm. We're not ready for that. But we can evacuate survivors and learn everything we can about our enemy." The chamber fell silent. The audacity of the proposal was breathtaking. Humanity had been traveling in space for less than a century. Their ships were primitive compared to Valeth technology. The journey to Valeth space would take months, and they would be flying into the heart of an active war zone. "The risks are enormous," President Wells said carefully. "We could lose our ships, our crews, and potentially reveal Earth's location to this void swarm." "With respect, Madam President," Admiral Mitchell replied, "the void swarm is already heading in our direction. The Valeth data shows they follow predictable patterns. Whether we help or not, they'll reach human space in 30 years. The only question is whether we'll face them with the knowledge and allies we could gain, or alone and unprepared." Dr. Elena Vasquez, the Council's chief xenobiologist, activated her own display. "I've been analyzing the Valeth biological data. They're remarkably similar to humans in many ways: carbon-based, oxygen-breathing, similar lifespans. If we can establish communication with the survivors, we might learn not just about their enemy, but about technologies and knowledge that took them thousands of years to develop. The debate continued for hours. Some representatives argued for caution, suggesting humanity should focus on building defenses around Earth. Others worried about the cost and complexity of a rescue mission across interstellar space. But gradually, a consensus began to emerge. Counselor Park from Europa Station stood to address the chamber. "My colleagues, we've spent the last 50 years searching the stars for signs of intelligent life. Now we've found it, and it's asking for our help. If we turn away, what does that say about the values we claim to represent?" The vote was closer than Admiral Mitchell had hoped, but clear enough to proceed. The United Earth Council authorized the rescue mission by a margin of 67%. Humanity would answer the Veilith distress call. 3 weeks later, Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the UES Endeavour, watching the final preparations for departure. The ship was humanity's most advanced vessel, equipped with experimental quantum drives and the latest communication technology. Her crew of 43 had volunteered for a mission that might take them years to complete, assuming they survived at all. Dr. Rivera had transferred from Horizon's Edge to serve as the mission's xenolinguist. His translations had improved dramatically as more Violets H messages were decoded. The aliens had been broadcasting continuously for decades, documenting their fight for survival in heartbreaking detail. "Captain," Rivera said, approaching her command chair, "I've received updated coordinates from the latest Veilith transmission. The survivors have established a refugee camp in the Kepler 442 system. It's heavily shielded and hidden, but they've agreed to make contact with us." Captain Vasquez nodded. The Veilith had been initially suspicious of humanity's offer to help. Their message logs showed that dozens of other civilizations had received their distress calls over the years. None had ever responded. The concept of strangers risking their lives to help was almost incomprehensible to them. "How long until we reach Veilith space?" the captain asked. Navigation Officer Torres consulted his displays. "At maximum quantum drive, 6 weeks. We'll be traveling faster than any human ship has ever gone." The Endeavour launched from Earth orbit in a blaze of drive flames, carrying with it the hopes of 2 species. Behind them, humanity's colonies worked frantically to prepare defenses against an enemy they barely understood. Ahead lay the unknown dangers of a galaxy at war. As they traveled, Dr. Rivera continued communicating with the Veilith survivors. Each exchange revealed more about their remarkable culture and their desperate situation. The refugees had been moving from system to system for years, always one step ahead of the Void Swarm's relentless advance. "They're not just running," Rivera explained during one of the daily briefings. "They're preserving. Every refugee ship carries libraries, art collections, genetic samples, cultural records. Even facing extinction, they're trying to save what they can of their civilization." The journey to Veilith space took 43 days. When the Endeavour finally dropped out of quantum drive at the edge of the Kepler 442 system, the crew got their first look at the survivors they had come to help. The Veilith refugee fleet was like anything humans had ever seen. 12 ships of impossible elegance floated in the shadow of a gas giant, their hulls seeming to bend light itself. Even damaged and worn by years of flight, they were breathtakingly beautiful. "Incoming transmission," Communications Officer Park reported. "It's in perfect English." The main screen flickered to life, revealing the face of a being that was both alien and somehow familiar. High Consul Theron of the Veilith had 4 arms, skin that shifted color with emotion, and large eyes that held depths of ancient sadness. But his expression was unmistakably one of wonder and gratitude. "Humans of the vessel Endeavour," he said, his voice carrying harmonics no human throat could produce. "We greet you across the void. For 40 years, we have called to the stars, believing ourselves alone in our suffering. You have proven that hope can survive even the darkest night." Captain Vasquez stepped forward. High Consul Theron, we are honored to meet you. We've come to offer whatever assistance we can provide. Theron's skin shifted to deeper blues and greens, colors that Dr. Rivera's research suggested indicated profound emotion. Captain Vasquez, your species has already given us the greatest gift possible, the knowledge that we are not alone. But I must warn you, the Void Swarm is closer than our last transmissions indicated. This system is no longer safe. What followed was a frantic 24 hours of coordination unlike anything in human history. The Endeavour worked alongside Veilith ships to evacuate the refugee fleet, using human ingenuity to solve problems that had puzzled the aliens for months. Human engineers jury-rigged solutions using spare parts and creative thinking. Human pilots flew daring reconnaissance missions to scout safe passage routes. Human doctors worked alongside Veilith healers to treat the wounded from body. H species. Your people are remarkable, Theron told Captain Vasquez as they coordinated the evacuation. The Veilith have always approached problems through careful study and planning. Humans seem to solve them through determination and improvisation. It's refreshing. The evacuation was barely complete when the Void Swarm arrived at the edge of the system. Through telescopes and sensors, the humans got their first look at the enemy that had terrorized the galaxy. The machines were massive geometric shapes that seemed to absorb light itself, moving with purpose and intelligence that was both artificial and deeply alien. All ships, prepare for quantum jump, Captain Vasquez ordered. The combined human Veilith fleet disappeared into faster-than-light travel just as the Void Swarm reached the inner system. Behind them, they left empty space where the refugee camp had hidden for months. Ahead lay an uncertain future, but for the first time in decades, the Veilith were not facing it alone. As the Endeavour raced toward human space with its precious cargo of refugees and knowledge, Dr. Rivera reflected on what they had accomplished. Humanity had made first contact with an alien species, conducted the largest rescue operation in their history, and gained invaluable intelligence about a threat that could destroy both civilizations. But more importantly, they had done something the galaxy hadn't seen in decades. They had answered a call for help from strangers, simply because it was the right thing to do. The Void Swarm might be ancient and powerful, but they had never faced anything quite like humanity before. The real war was just beginning.